Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to another Hunter x Hunter review for the Chimera Ant arc. So this is our third review, our third part of the Chimera Ant arc we're talking about. And this might be an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but this is my favorite section of the arc. Yeah, I like this part of the arc more than what's to come. But I'll just say, like, in terms of the 2011 anime, which again is how I'm viewing the series, this is covering episodes 91 to 110. And I refer to this section of the arc as the King and Komugi. So that will tell you kind of what we're covering in this section. Um, so let's talk about it. This section of the arc is dedicated to a lot of character development, a lot of big focused like growth for a lot of characters, really. And I really enjoy how it goes down. So, Shoot and Knuckle are headed to the NGL, having defeated Gon and Killua. Um, while Gon has to recover from APR for 30 days. He cannot use his Nen at all during that time, so he's kind of out of luck because he has no chance to do anything here without his Nen. And also, he can't even really train in Nen too much without being able to use it. Obviously, there's only a few basics he might be able to handle. So Killua during this time is going to protect Gon. He's like, I'm going to protect you, but then he's worried about like everything Bisky had told him about how he would betray Gon and everything with the trajectory he was on. So he's worried that he's going to have to leave after a month. Meanwhile, the king of the Chimera Ants is finally born. Prematurely though. He's born early because he wants to be. It's kind of funny, kind of ridiculous. It's like he wants to come out early. He wants to, he's impatient. However, this causes the queen to go into critical condition because it wasn't expected, and the way he comes out damages her. So she's in a really bad spot, but he doesn't really care. He basically sees her as, you gave birth to me, that was your goal, you're done. You can die for all I care now. And so the king leaves along with the royal guard, who, as we had already been told prior, would switch their allegiance entirely to the king at the point of his birth, that they would no longer serve the queen. So yeah, it makes sense. But a lot of the other Chimera ants aren't about this. They're not a fan of this, including Colt. Colt is still exceptionally loyal to the queen. Peggy is killed, though, unfortunately. But the king and the royal guard just completely abandon the uh, the the hive, I guess you could call it. Completely abandon all the other chimera ants and go off on their own. Colt is scared. He's scared of the king. He's scared of the queen being in the process of dying. So, not knowing what else to do, he goes to confront the humans he knows are watching, which would be Nove and uh, Moral. He begs them for help. He begs them to help him save the queen. And so they strike a deal. They even reach out to Nutaro and everything, and figure something out to help. During this time, when they have people attending to the queen, she gives a name to her son, to the king. And the king doesn't know this. Neither does the royal guard. It's only all those who were there. Like Moral knows it, Nove knows it, Colt knows it, and the others who were in attendance at that time. And the name that she gives for him is Meruem. Um, And right as she dies, we also see that she has this tiny baby ant inside of her. It's very underdeveloped. But Colt decides to raise it as his own, which is really cute. And it's really sad too because we know that Colt is partially made from that little boy that the crab ant killed. Um, and so it's like his instincts of protecting his sister are kind of still in there, and it's like that's really fucking sad. It's really sad. During this time, the other squad leaders of the Chimera Ant Nest decide to go off on their own, do their own thing because they don't have a queen to listen to anymore. The king doesn't seem to care about them, so they'll just do their own thing. So they even leave NGL and whatnot and go off into the world, and it causes a lot of problems. This reporter ends up being killed by uh, Hagia while he's being interviewed because that's a thing. Um, we also see Chitu getting involved with a bunch of people in a town square and most likely killing them, though we don't see that happen or anything. It's bad. Miriam, however, and his royal guard head to the neighboring country of East Gorteau, where they take over the palace there that was led by this fat, very much uncaring leader who's just like he's very much kind of a play on the idea of the well-fed political leader who's starving out his people. Who just doesn't care for the people of the country and is like mistreating them and like keeping them poor and hungry and everything to try and keep them submissive to him. It's very much a play on that. He's not an important character though, and Miriam kind of deals with him pretty easily. Um, and so things are going bad with the ants kind of spreading all over the world, taking over, and preparing for even worse in terms of Miriam and Guard. During all of this, Gon has nothing much to do, so he ends up accepting an offer of a date from Palm. And this is a part that pretty much everybody, from what I've seen, are creeped out by and weirded out by, and no one seems to like this that I've seen. Everyone I've seen talk about this, like on a Discord server I'm a part of and everything, everyone kind of agrees that this part's weird and feels unnecessary and it's just kind of creepy. Because Palm is 22 years old, I believe, early 20s for sure. And she has become infatuated and wants to date Gon, who is 12. It's, like I said, really fucking weird and creepy. I don't know what the joke with it was supposed to be on Tagashi's part, um, but it's just creepy. So I'm not going to talk much about it. All I'll say is that by the end of the date, Palm gets very angry at Gon and kidnaps him. Killua has to save him and does so. Um, and Gon's not being hurt or tortured or anything. He's being made to like write a bunch of stuff, I believe it was. But Palm like has him under threat and everything. She has her knife out and it go or Kilo comes in to save him and everything, and they run off and she's gonna chase after them, but she's stopped by Nove and everything. Um, so that's all I'm really gonna say about that little storyline in this because again, it just was really weird and unnecessary and creepy. It's like you could do a lot of good stuff with Palm as a character, her being just generally creepy and weird, but not that. Not that. Um, Anywho, Kila ends up getting into a fight with Ramit in the woods. Um, and Ramit with his Nen is proving to be formidable. until Killua kind of accidentally ends up noticing that in his head is a needle placed there by his brother Illumi. And it had been kind of controlling him this entire time. It had been making him scared to face stronger opponents, and just in general, it had been making him follow all of Illumi's orders and whatnot and ideals. He removes the needle, which is a pretty painful looking experience, but it basically allows him to completely fight unrestricted, allows him to completely fight by his own rules, by his own just overall choices, basically, you could say. And he kills Ramit, which it's like, okay. It's like, I wasn't like really too attached to Ramit as a character or anything, so it's like, okay. It was more of a cool moment for Killua than anything. Getting to see him finally free of his brother's influence. Um, Moral and Knuckle take on Cheetu, but that entire fight and what follows with it isn't really too much to talk about. Not at least not until a little later on. Um, it's interesting, and it more centers down to Cheetu's speed versus their ability and whatnot, and that's about it. Um, in the meantime, we also find out that Neferpito, had turned Kite, well, more of his body, his corpse, into a puppet. She had kept it, had it like kind of had the head reattached and everything, and turned it into a living puppet to serve her, which is really fucked up. It's like, I mean, she already killed him, and now she's resurrecting his corpse to act as a servant. Like, that's really fucked up. Um, but Kite manages to be captured by Shoot, and Gon and Kilo and them are shown what happened, and they are dedicated to bringing him back and saving him and everything. Moral is a little questionable of it at first. He tests Gon passes, and yeah, everything seems to work out on that regard. So everyone now is kind of working together again, and the group heads to East Gorto in order to find Neferpito and launch an assault on the enemy overall. During this time, we have an intermission. And this part was like really almost completely random because it kind of came out of nowhere. But I also really liked this section during this, because during this section, during these episodes, we have a couple episodes focusing on the Phantom Troop. During this time, when all the ants are just off doing their own thing and taking over all these different places, the Phantom Troop receives word that Meteor City, which is home to a good portion of them, has been taken over by one of these such ants. So they go over to, well, take it back, because they do have a loyalty to their original home and everything. And so we get to see a bunch of the Phantom Troop members, including the newest member, who is Killua's brother, not Illumi, but younger brother. I can't think of his name at the moment. Is it Alaka? Or is Alico the other one who hasn't shown up yet? I know of the other brother who hasn't shown up yet, but I don't know a lot of information about the character. I just know there is another one, and I've heard the name before. I'm not sure on the name of this one. But the Phantom Troop goes off and they fight these ants, and none of them really have any real trouble. Um, and in the end, Phaeton is the one who ends up facing the queen, Zazan. Zazan is the scorpion-like one who we've seen multiple times in the past. She's an established character at this point. But Phaeton unleashes hell, um, to put it lightly, and completely obliterates her with the power of the sun. Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's pretty insane, and these two episodes pretty much show that we have not even begun to see the full extent of the Phantom Troops' power. That they're stronger than we gave them credit for in the York New City arc. So that's insane. Uh, Meanwhile, during all of this, Gon and Killua split up in East Gorto to accomplish a couple different things quicker. And Gon ends up being stalked by some ants. He manages to defeat a couple of them and ends up coming into contact with the chameleon Melioron and making friends with him. Gon and Melioron kind of get along quickly, but the reason is because Melioron wants to go after the king. We find out that he has memories of his human life, and that Peggy, the penguin, who was kind of the wise mentor figure of the group, was actually in their human lives prior a father figure to Melioron. So he kind of wants revenge here. We also find out about Melioron's Nen power. He can turn invisible, but he can also completely eliminate his presence from being detected by anyone. He can also share that with other people. Anyone he touches also has his presence completely eliminated. The only issue is that he has to hold his breath to do this. As long as he's holding his breath, it's good. But as soon as he lets it out again, as soon as he breathes again, it's just completely dissipated, basically. So it's a limited ability for sure, which is good because if it wasn't limited, it would be super OP. But the fact that it has that limit makes it a little more understandable. So Gon starts planning things with him and even offers to introduce him to the others in order to get everything kind of going, get everything kind of worked out, so that they can continue on with the plan even stronger than ever. Killua, meanwhile, is off doing his own thing when he ends up meeting an ant by the name of Ikago. Ikago is an octopus who, at first, is possessing the body because he's parasitic, oddly enough, possessing the body of a human, I guess, shooting these fleas at Killua. He chases the possessed body, Ikago possessing the body, into a cave where Ikago tries to lay a trap for him, but instead Killua ends up saving Ikago and gaining his loyalty, which is not what I expected, but it's like, okay, sure. However, Ikago wasn't the only enemy there. There's also the Ortho siblings who decide to play a game of darts with Killua's body using Nen. They're hiding off in their little hideout and using Nen to basically turn Killua's body from a distance into a dartboard. It's complicated and weird and interesting, mind you, but Killua manages to basically see through it by just knowing how to play darts. He sees through their plans, he sees through how they're playing, and realizes how to stop them right in the nick of time. And he kills them. So Ikago helps him out, brings him, he's pretty damn injured. So Ikago brings him to a doctor, and they become friends. And it's very reminiscent of Killua becoming friends with Gon and how Killua felt about it. Because Killua didn't have any friends before, and it's like he sees Gon in like this really... He puts him on a pedestal, very much so. And Ikago does very much the same thing with Killua. And at the same time, Killua is kind of emulating Gon here in another way. Because Gon just sees Killua as a friend, and that's all he needs to know. And it's like he doesn't even really think about it. And we see Killua, like, Ikago's still kind of nervous and everything, and still kind of unsure about what's going on. And Killua's like, basically like, I already consider you a friend. It's like, that's just how I've already thought about us. Are you coming or not? It's very much emulating Gon's kind of feelings towards Keela, and it's like, oh, that's really nice. I really like that. um, and during all of this, we also get to see what the king is doing, and this is where the title of this part, as I called it, the King and Komugi, comes in. So Miriam is learning strategy by playing a bunch of strategic board games like chess and Go. One of the board games he plays is something created completely original for this series, and it's called Gungi. And it seems to have some similarities to chess and checkers and all of that. It seems like it has a very similar idea to a lot of these strategic board games. But it is definitely done in its own way as well. So he starts to learn it, but he's been playing all these different strategic games with the best of the best in East Gorteau, kind of the country's best players and everything. So he has his guard bring in the best Gungi player, and it happens to be this young woman named Komugi. Um, Komugi is this small, kind of fragile, blind girl who who's not very smart by her own admission, not very talented. The only thing she's good at is Gungi. And otherwise she sees herself as kind of a failure. But she's really fucking good at Gungi. As we see her and Miriam begin to play, it's made very apparent that she is a genius at this game. She is a prodigy. And it's really cool. And she has a nice personality. She's very cutesy. She's very kind. She's very caring. She doesn't want to inconvenience her family, for example. Um, she's a good person, and she's genuinely super likable. But she's also a beast at this game, and she just keeps beating Miriam. And at first, Miriam's like new to this, and it's like, okay, how long is this going to be before he masters this and defeats her? But he just doesn't. He never manages to defeat her. They keep playing over and over and over, and eventually he starts seeing some value in her. Like he starts like connecting with her a little bit. Like he even allows her to rest at points, so that she can play him at full strengths. And I think part of that is initially because he wants to beat her when she's at her best, because otherwise it doesn't matter. But he does start to grow very connected to her. Um, During all of this, I'm saying that a lot. Nove breaches the palace because they plan on infiltrating and attacking the palace. So Nove goes in to set up some waypoints using his Nen ability, which will allow everyone to teleport in. While he's doing so, however, he ends up feeling the Nen of the Royal Guards. I believe specifically Neferpito, maybe Yuppie as well. Or that might be later on that Yuppie's is felt, but at least Neferpito's. And it breaks him. Nove, who's normally this very composed, very strong individual, is completely mentally broken by the sheer power of Neferpito's Nen. And it's terrifying, honestly. It's freaking scary that's the case. That he becomes that emotionally and mentally destroyed by it. Um so as they continue to prepare for the infiltration and everything, Moral, the other big pro hunter, who is again the master of both shoot and knuckle, is fighting two different big battles during this section. He first fights Chitu, which ends up becoming a battle of basically patience. Chitu locks him in this kind of alternate pocket dimension with his Nen ability that was given to him by one of the royal guards, Shawapoof. And basically, the only way to get out is to beat Chitu. However, Moral's like, I'm just going to wait this out. We have like 8 hours or so, right? I can do this in only a couple. So I'll wait 5 hours. How about that? And so he just lays down and tries to go to sleep. Chitu's annoyed by it because he wants to fight and he wants to show off his speed and his power. But eventually he just kind of gives up and like reads manga. um, but this allows Moral to craft a really intricate and really brilliant plan that allows him to defeat Chitu and get out of there. Chitu, however, isn't completely taken down and is able to escape in the end. Um, but yeah, Moral does end up winning for sure. Moral then has another fight a little later against Leal. Leal is a lion chimera ant who was formerly known as Hagya. However, he changed his name and prefers to go by Leal now. And it's like I'm watching it, and it's like he's very insistent on this and gets angry when people call him by Hagya still. And it's like it's not just me, but that very much feels like it kind of feels like it's similar to a trans person changing their name and everything and not wanting to be referred to by their dead name. I don't know. It had a very similar feeling to me, and maybe it is just me, but that's just how it felt. And I know there's really not much of anything else to compare with Leal and that, but still. Either way, Moral fights him, and it ends up becoming a really interesting battle because Leal now has this Nen power that apparently was taken from someone else that Moral knew. Because Leal has this power where he can borrow other people's powers. So he uses that to take this Nen ability that basically allows him to control water and surf on it and use it like in a really powerful way. Moral does manage to defeat him though, take him out, and it's really cool. It's a really interesting fight, and it doesn't go quite in the way that you think it's going to. Meruem and Komugi continue to have their matches, and Meruem, no matter what he tries to do, just cannot defeat Komugi. There is this one match though where he tries out this plan he thought of, this strategy, and it ends up being the same strategy that Komugi had come up with and used in tournaments, and took great success at first, but eventually it was killed off because others started using against her, and it just stopped being as effective as it was. And Komugi gets really fucking emotional by this. She's like really like she compares it to seeing like your baby being brought back to life and stuff, and it's like, oh my god, I love this character. It's made very apparent very quickly that it's like, yeah, I love this character. I love Komugi. There's even this one part, and that really confirmed for me how much I love her character, where it's like she's being attacked by a bunch of birds in the room she's being kept in by the king and everything. The king is initially going to her to, I think, take her out because he's kind of at this point where he's starting to question things about himself, but he's trying to stick to the idea that he's the most powerful and that he can do anything because he's the most powerful. So I believe he's going to her room to take her out, to kill her, to prove him to himself that idea. But he sees her being attacked by birds, and an instant protective instinct just snaps into his mind, and he gets the birds out of the way to protect her and everything, and he's so scared, he's so worried about her, and he shows so much concern. He tries to protect her and everything, and this breaks Komugi because, as she puts it, no one has ever been this nice to her before, and it is both heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. And it's like, yeah, that was the moment that Komugi became one of my favorite characters in this series. But there's more to it than that. Komugi has changed Meruem. Because honestly, prior to her, Miriam was not that interesting of a villain. He was pretty much just, one of those characters who's like strong. He's just a very strong, very powerful, very intense villain, and that's pretty much it. He didn't have much to his character. He had a little bit of intimidation, of course, sure, but he didn't actually have much of a character and much going for him. But Komugi changed that, and she actually, with her influence, he became a character. He began to have depth added to him. He began to have a lot of more, just a lot more. It felt like there was something to him rather than just being a strong enemy. Honestly, in that way, Komugi helped Meruem become a good villain. Really ironically, because she doesn't even know what he is, because she's blind. She doesn't even know he's a chimera ant. She doesn't even know he's a bad guy, really. So she's growing attached to him too, and it's just like, ah, it's really sweet, but also kind of troubling, maybe in a little way. Um, but I like seeing their relationship blossom, and again, it very much helps Miriam's character continue to grow and breathe and feel real. Honestly, because there's even this part where Miriam tears off his own arm for Komugi, and it's like, and the royal guards are really troubled by all of this because Miriam's growing attached to a human girl, and it's like he in their eyes he shouldn't be, so they're really concerned about all of this, and it's like Pito has to heal his arm and everything, and Shaopu's kind of just losing his mind, and it's really interesting. It's really fascinating to see. Um, but this part then ends with our heroes finalizing their plan for the assault on the palace and preparing to head out, basically at any moment. And so, what this section of the arc did is it developed Meruem as a character and made him actually feel like a character. I mean, granted, it was this section of the arc that he was also born in, but still. But it also helped develop Killua. It helped Gon a little bit, but not as much in this section. But we got to see a lot more of other characters like Moral and Shoot and Knuckle to a lesser degree, but also Nove, and we got to just really develop them and grow them as characters. Um, and again, the best part of this section was easily the stuff with Meruem and Komugi. It just felt like, one, the most interesting part of this section of the arc, and two, it just the way that was done, the way that was handled, uh, Komugi's character in general, and the way she influences um, and changes Meruem's is just so fucking good. It is just so fucking good. Like I said, Komugi easily became one of my favorite characters in the series, not just this section of the arc, but in the series as a whole. And I don't know what's to come past where I'm at right now. Oops, sorry for hitting the camera there. Um, I've seen currently up to episode 129 as of recording this, so no spoilers for anything past that, please. But I'm very interested to see what they do going forward with this relationship. Um, but yeah, so that ends my review for this part of the arc. This was longer, like 10 minutes longer than the other reviews have been. I apologize for that, but there's a lot more to talk about. This was honestly a really long section of the arc, so there was just a lot to talk about. Um, If you want any more specific thoughts or whatnot, feel free to ask in the comments below. If I missed anything that you want to know about, feel free to ask. And yeah, we have two more sections of this arc to go. The next section will cover episodes 111 to 127 of the 2011 anime, and I have dubbed it the Palace Assault section of the arc. So we'll be getting into that next time. I don't know exactly when I'll get the next one up. It's just we'll see how it goes. Um, but the fifth one, the fifth and final one, I don't know when I'll be getting that one up either because we have to see because I haven't actually finished the arc yet. So we'll see on that too. Maybe next week. We'll see. But in the meantime, yeah, tell me what you thought of this section of the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter. Once again, this was episodes 91 to 110 of the 2011 anime. I don't know the equivalent of that with the manga. But tell me your thoughts on all of this that I talked about, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.